Well, I started messenger marketing 7.5 years ago, and the outcome is still in the making, really. But the business has actually gone through 3 iterations. So I actually started as a sponsorship agency, and that was actually just after September 11 in 2001. So not the best time, a little bit like the current economy. And so I gradually morphed into an integrated marketing agency, and have since kind of morphed into a publishing company. But that we now have messenger publishing and messenger marketing running simultaneously. Well, basically, quite by accident, as many entrepreneurial ventures are. So about 4.5 years ago, I decided that I wanted to create a product of my own. I'd always been sort of service orientated, and decided to write a book. I'd written for quite a lot of magazines at the time, and decided that a book was, the next obvious thing to do. Not sure why, but I guess it was something that I could pull together my marketing and PR and sponsorship skills and my event management and a whole lot of other things. So I decided to write a book called Happiness Is, and I knew absolutely nothing about the publishing industry at the time. In fact, the extent of my knowledge was a one-day publishing workshop and a one-day self-publishing workshop. And what I quickly realised was that I could go down the self-publishing route because the traditional publishing was slightly limited in terms of their main distribution channels were through bookstores, and basically I would lose all control, and being a bit of a control freak, I decided to do it myself. What I didn't realise was the price tag attached to that. So it was going to cost me $80,000. So I had to think quite laterally around, well, how do I actually underwrite that? So I came up with this concept of incorporating 300 Australians and 65 photographers, and producing a beautiful coffee table book. And what I actually did, which was quite unique in Australia, was pre-sell it to a number of corporates and Clinique Perfume, because they had a perfume called Happy Hearts. And I basically pre-sold the concept and said, producing this book, why don't you use it as a premium incentive gift or reward, and pre-purchase a number of copies which I can customise with your logo or a message from your CEO and all that kind of thing. And much to my surprise and delight, they actually said yes. I guess a lot of corporates in the past had been producing or giving away things like inanimate objects like coffee mugs and golf umbrellas, and I guess a book was sort of something tangible and quite unique that they could actually customise and utilise as part of their marketing mix. And so within the first 12 months, we actually sold 36,000 copies of Happiness Is, and which mightn't sound like an astounding figure, but in Australia a bestseller is actually 5,000, which is fairly dismal. So, and it's interesting because through bookstores we only sold about 3,500, and the rest of them were actually doing corporate deals. So that kind of accidentally and out of a need created a whole kind of publishing model. Look, I think it's just about thinking laterally, and that's very much what we do with all of our clients now, and I think that can be applied to absolutely any business model, and I think it's actually quite a smart way to do business because it minimises the risk. So what happened as a result of that was we actually attracted a lot of media coverage, both from a consumer and a business perspective. Consumer because, it was a beautiful book incorporating so many Australians, but a business perspective because nothing had really been done like that in the publishing world in Australia before. And on the back of that, we actually, one minute I was sort of pretty much working from home, producing that book, and thought I was having some time out. And the next minute, within 4 months, I had 12 staff. We'd moved offices twice. And and sort of 3 years later, we've now produced 73 books for a combination of individuals and corporates. So it's kind of been a bit of a whirlwind and quite an exciting time. But the whole pre-sales model is pretty much what underpins our business now. So there's the whole production side of putting a book together, which is pulling together the content and editing it and making sure you've got a beautiful product that's on brand. But then the other side is really working, with strategic alliance partners and coming up with joint ventures and really working to try and find a fit with other corporations or stakeholders and underwrite the cost, and it just is a win-win situation for a whole lot of people. So doing really well, having a lot of fun. Well, basically, and it's kind of interesting, I've learned a lot of lessons from that. 2 years ago, when it all took off, I just thought, we'd go global, and we were producing all sorts of different book series and had very big ideas, and I've kind of pulled back a little now and just being much more strategic But we've just formed an alliance in the US, in New York, which is fantastic, with another publishing company. So I'm going over there to spend a month this year just speaking with them. But essentially we've just put out a Learn to Surf series in Australia. We've got a book, Learn to Surf Bondi, Byron and Manly, and we're doing Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast, and then a Learn to Surf Australia. And so they've just licensed the ability to do a Learn to Surf California, and that kind of model can keep being rolled out globally, really, which is really exciting. And then on behalf of a number of our clients, we're starting to really forge partnerships into the US in particular, and also the UK at the moment. So it's pretty exciting. Well, they actually run very much alongside each other, and in terms of focus, from a marketing perspective, it's very much book related. So essentially we use a book from a production perspective as the core product, and then we help people to leverage off the back of that, whether they be corporates or individuals, people with a profile on the speaking circuit. And the marketing side is something that kind of feeds through and helps them to fund and distribute the books, I guess, and come up with a whole lot of different ideas, and to leverage the business or the book or whatever they're trying to achieve with their objectives and building brand and things. So I guess the majority of my time personally is spent in the marketing business, and then I've got a lot of staff, because the publishing business, I guess, is more streamlined and systems and process orientated now, which I hated and fought for a long time. That age-old question. Well, I'm not a ball-breaking feminist, unfortunately. I don't actually see any differences. I sit alongside male entrepreneurs just as happily as I sit alongside female entrepreneurs. I know a lot of people would argue that point. I did sit on the board of the Australian Business Women's Network for a few years, and I think, there are many fantastic organisations, Business Chicks and a whole lot of others, that are very, very successfully run. And actually, there are a lot more organisations, I think, that particularly support women entrepreneurs as opposed to males. But I don't myself particularly see any differences. I try to maintain my femininity, but I think we can run businesses very much in the same way. Gosh, well, there's the client side, I guess, of both businesses, which is very, very exciting. We're starting to work with a lot more corporates who are kind of recognising books as a part of their marketing mix, and something that's a little bit different that they can do and, use as a branding tool. So that's exciting. We're working with some great clients like Kentucky and Toby's Estate Coffee and a whole lot of others. And then on the other side, we've got a few series coming out, the Learn to Surf series, which we'll obviously be trying to leverage as much as possible globally. And that's kind of a huge strategy in terms of marketing and distribution, and probably forms quite a nice case study that's never been done before. To date, it's been out for about 6 months, and we've got 213 partnerships from, people that surf schools that are using it with, take a surf lesson and get a free copy of a surf book, and then we've got it at different hotels as part of the mini bar, buy a bottle of gin or buy a Learn to Surf book. So we've done a lot of deals, and that's quite a comprehensive global strategy now. So that's kind of big. And then we're working on a best of series, starting with Best of Bondi and rolling that out, and a fashion series, and basically we just kind of roll with whatever opportunities arise, and it's pretty exciting and pretty nice to be able to be flexible and, take up whatever happens. Self-belief, probably. I think, you just have to be extremely tenacious and, have an unwavering self-belief, really, and a fantastic team, great systems and processes. There are so many things. Great cash flow, that's one of the most important things. You're learning all the time. I think you can never afford to be too complacent or get too arrogant, because there are stages in the business which it's just absolutely unbelievable, and I couldn't even imagine the growth that we've experienced. But then you need to kind of sit back and go, okay, well, now I've got a whole lot more things to learn. So it's kind of a humbling experience, and I guess just remain grounded and keep going.